I need everybody to lean on in as I tell you this. Okay, come closer. It's 3 p.m. on the day this video is supposed to go up, and I'm starting to film. Let that just, that's where I'm at. That's where we're at. That's how it's going. Okay. Hey guys, it's Sarah. Welcome back to another video here on my channel. Hope you guys are doing well. Again, I'm sorry I missed last week. I'm gonna be moving to every other week uploading for the time being. I'm starting a new job. I'm heading a department of summer stock theater for the summer, and it is about to get absolutely insane, okay? And I don't want to get so burnt out trying to do every week that then I just don't upload, okay? That's what we want to avoid. So I think if we go ahead and we mentally prepare for every other week, we're gonna be fine. I have a feeling you guys will understand, but I just want to be transparent with you and let you know what's going on and why. Let me know down below what you guys have going on for the summer. Anybody starting any new fun jobs? Does anybody else do summer stock? It's kind of a niche market, but let me know if you do. I also have been like out of my mind. My writer brain is just so loud. It's like whirring in the background of my thoughts right now. The books that I'm working on currently are like everything I can think about. Like the family that I've made has just like taken over my life. And I finished the first draft of the first book. It's an 8-book series. I finished the first draft of the first one on Beltane, which was May 1st. That is the twin main characters' birthdays, and I was so happy and proud of myself. But also now all I want to do is work on draft 2 because I desperately want to get it ready for querying. And this is the first project I've ever written where like the first draft is deliciously good. Like I just know it's good, and I'm like, if you can just polish it a little bit more, this mess is ready to go to an agent. It's there, okay? That is the most intoxicating feeling as a writer because it's so rare that we read our work and we like it this early. Typically it takes like so many drafts. Anybody will tell you that. I will tell you that, okay? My project before this took me a decade to finish and give to people to read, right? And now I'm 2.5 months into this project and I'm like, this is the best thing I've ever written. This is my debut novel. And then finally, I just feel like I need to be honest with you guys and tell you that the chunk of episodes I was on for the originals was dragging, okay? Something was off and it just wasn't clicking for me. Episode 10 was such a slog and I was like, what is going on? It took me 4 days to finish episode 10. Something happened and I was like, oh, I'm back. We're in it now. I'm ready. Give me more of this. So I think the end of season 1, I'm gonna be fine. But man, there was that little lull there for a few episodes where I was like, I've never cared less about these people in my life. So without further ado, let's talk about episode 10. So far, it's one of my least favorites. Let's just get it out of the way. We got some vampires to discuss. So we open with a flashback of Rebekah kind of giving us more of her men rule the world and I hate men and they just always lead to pain and suffering for everybody involved. She's in that era, remember? She's mad at everybody right now. So she's giving us some historical context to why she feels this way. And that is the story of the Casket Girls, which I did Google, and it is real and true New Orleans history. We see a flashback of these group of women that have come over to New Orleans to get married, and instead they almost get attacked by like a mob of awful men. You know what they were planning to do. Rebekah stops them. She kills all the men. And then she grabs the girls and is like, bring whatever you want. We've got to go. And they have caskets with them that they empty of their belongings and like run off with her into the fields. In the present, we see Rebekah at a festival in town because this is still like a celebration that they're doing today. Haley is putting on a wedding dress costume and she's struggling to get into it because she is very pregnant. So Elijah shows up and helps her zip it. He's in casual, regular clothes, which he never does. And I was just like gnawing on the bars of my enclosure. I was like, why is he in such a soft looking shirt? She can't actually go out and like celebrate in the streets with everybody because it's just not safe for her to leave the house. Elijah does offer to go with her, but she says no because she doesn't want to risk making Klaus angrier. Hold that in your brain, okay? That she says, we shouldn't do that, Klaus won't like it. And then she's awful and she's like, could you unzip me? And she makes him unzip her dress, and he is in fact fighting for his life, okay? He's never been struggling so hard. Marcel catches Rebekah down on the streets looking for a wedding dress costume. He tries to be all sweet, but she pushes him away and says he relinquished his right to touch her. Davina is pulling the compulsion off of Cammy, and it's working, but it's really, really painful. And there was a moment here, I don't know if it was just the distress on her face or the angle, but she looked so much like Joe's actress from TVD all of a sudden. I was like, how did I not notice this before? I think it's the cheekbones that they have, like the shape of their jaw and their cheekbone is so similar. Klaus and Marcel are freaking out about Davina being missing. Elijah is also there, and Marcel tries to square up at him and kind of blame her running away on him and act like Elijah doesn't really care and he doesn't really get a say in things. And Elijah is just like, I don't know who you think you're speaking to, but back up. They end up bonding because they want to keep Davina safe, even though Klaus is starting to think that she's probably an enemy now, which means that he wants to kill her. Elijah and Marcel may not like each other, but they both agree that like, we do not harm children. Like that's a code that they like both share. So that's a nice bonding moment for them. Haley gives away to Rebekah that she's the reason why Davina ran away because she told her that Marcel was lying and everything. But Rebekah is a girl's girl for the time being, and they are bonded in the fact that they are in a sisterhood together in a house full of awful men, so she's not going to tell anyone. Sophie is like drinking and partying and hooking up with random people, trying to like drown her sorrows. Sabine comes over and is like, I really need you to get it together, okay, because Davina is missing, which means she's not with Marcel, which means we could do a locator spell to find her and he won't know, so we need to do it quickly. Josh is still with Davina and Cammy. Now it's daytime, okay, in case y'all didn't realize that. I'm pretty sure that Davina came over at night, but it is now like the middle of the day. Josh is just stuck with them because he still doesn't have a daylight ring and he's getting hungry. So he asks Cammy, he's like, do you by chance have any blood bags? And Davina is like, oh, don't worry about it. Here you go. Girl. Before he can bite her though, she starts getting like witchy visions of the other witches using magic, and so they realize, oh my god, Davina and Cammy need to run before the witches come and get them. Cammy has a breakdown when she realizes that Klaus knows about the fact that Sean was hexed and that's why he did the killings that he did. This whole time she was thinking like, yes, that's true, but surely Klaus didn't know, because if he knew, he would tell me. Before she can really process that, Josh is like, I'm so sorry, that's so upsetting. Here's my car keys. Y'all need to run. He has an emotional goodbye with Davina, and when I tell you I was nervous, count your days, Josh. Count your freaking days. Also, I love that you guys haven't spoiled for me if he lasts like the whole time or not. Don't tell me, all right? Let me be in suspense until it's too late. The bodyguards over at the Michelson compound are being really annoying where Haley's concerned. She manages to like sneak away from them though by being like, it's my gynecologist, I need to go talk about the baby. Sophie manipulates her into helping with the harvest ritual by telling her that it was a witch from Sophie's bloodline that cursed the werewolves in Haley's bloodline to be stuck under like the full moon curse. You know how they're stuck as wolves the whole time and then on the full moon they turn into people? Sophie's like, I'll break that curse for you, girl. What does she need from Haley? I'm so glad you asked. She needs to know where the body of Celeste was buried. Yes, Elijah's dead girlfriend. Yeah, she needs her remains because she's like, she is one of the most powerful witches ever, and she was not consecrated in our cemetery. She was put somewhere else, and Elijah's the only one who knows where she is. So I need you to find that location for me so that I can dig up her bones and consecrate them myself against Elijah and Celeste's wishes. Cammy and Davina are now out on the streets trying to escape. Davina kind of has like a veil over her face, but Cammy is just Like out and about, okay? Not disguised in the slightest. The Casket Girl Festival is still going on, so the streets are jam-packed, and Klaus and Marcel and Elijah, they're all roaming, looking for them. Klaus ends up snagging Tim against Marcel and Elijah's wishes because, again, Davina and Tim are children. I think they're both 16. And obviously, Klaus is going to use him as bait, so everybody's on edge. Josh is still at Cammy's, all right? For some stupid reason, he's been calling her from the apartment instead of like going out to look for them. I thought for sure that the witches were gonna show up and just kill him on accident because he was wrong place, wrong time, but somehow he escapes death yet again. He ends up getting a call from Klaus though, and basically Klaus tells him like, I know you're with Davina and or you know where she is. You better find her quickly because I'm about to kill her little boyfriend unless she comes and gives herself up. Meanwhile, Cammy and Davina went back to the church, which is hella triggering for Cammy. Josh calls and fills everybody in. He's like, yeah, y'all need to come because Tim's about to die. They tell him to just leave and go hide somewhere and they will handle it. But then the witches show up and knock Cammy out. Davina freaks out on them. She levitates them up into the air, all right? These older, supposedly powerful witches, she just levitates them up into the air and then snaps their necks, killing them. Sabine is one of these witches. Sabine gone. Haley finds Elijah's journals and just goes through them. We get this awful little voiceover montage of him being like, I met this witch today. She's so cute. Oh, I'm in love with the witch now. I've never been more in love. She's the best. Celeste is dead and I will never smile again. The night will never cease. Like, he's so dramatic. Davina and Josh run into each other, right? She tells him, I'm strong enough to kill the originals. I'm just gonna freaking do it. I'm just gonna freaking kill all of them right now today. And Josh knows what will happen if the originals die. But he just doesn't tell her because he can tell that she needs to do this. And so he's just like, okay, yeah, sure. Don't hold back. And he just lets her go. And then Rebekah shows up and she's like, wow, Josh, that was shockingly noble of you. We're not gonna let that happen though. This is the start of her recruiting people for her like us against the boys plan. Klaus, back at the Michelson compound, has Tim up on a little like carved ledge several feet off the ground, just like playing his fiddle. Davina shows up, and remember, Tim forgot her. Like, they compelled him to forget everything, so he's surprised to see her all over again. Marcel wants to discuss things, but Davina is well past that point. She starts just yelling at all of them, and then she sort of grabs Klaus first and starts, like, forcing a werewolf change on him. So his body just starts breaking and contorting, and she's like, show us your true face. And his fangs come out and his eyes change colors, and then she just knocks him out. She immediately turns on Elijah and she's like, you're a liar too. You say you're the noble brother, but you've been eating people for 1,000 years. You have the blood of so many innocents on your tongue. Why don't you choke on it? And he just starts, like, the veins in his neck, like, bulge and explode, and he starts drowning in blood. He's gurgling, like, dying breath gurgling in the background of this scene as she turns to Marcel for, like, the ending of this little event. She tells him that she trusted him and loved him, and she thought that he was telling the truth, but he just handed her over to Klaus like a trophy, so maybe she should boil him in bronze. I was like, girl. Marcel apologizes, and then Rebekah stabs him, and he like goes down, and Rebekah says to her, like, I hope you weren't falling for that. Come with me, we need to talk. Rebekah technically has Josh, so she's not being like totally innocent. Like she's lightly threatening to like hurt Josh if Davina doesn't come, but she also helps Tim get down. So she's trying to get Davina to trust her. She's being genuine in this moment. And she's like, I need to show you one more thing. Just come with me and I think you'll finally understand. Sophie is having a terrible time finding Celeste out in the woods, even though Haley told her that he like buried her under 2 baby oak tree saplings. And Haley's just like, girl, are you a witch or not? Like, there's gotta be a spell you can use to find her body. It should not be this hard. In this moment, I was like, yeah, Haley, I hear you. Because all I thought about the New Orleans witches was that they were real scary, okay? And I've come to find out that this group is just not the scary group, but they are coming soon. Rebekah takes the Davina team down to the garden so that she can prove to her that Marcel is not a good guy and he's been keeping all these vampires prisoner this whole time. Tim starts freaking out and choking and like passing out on the ground. He looks at Davina and goes, I didn't know what I was doing. Klaus made me do it. I didn't realize what it was until I made you do it too. Davina's like, do what? And he's like, drink. And they realize that the water from the compound was poisoned. So now Davina and Tim are like Romeo and Juliet style dying, and Rebekah and Josh are just standing there like, what do we do? Back at the church, Cammy goes off on Kieran when she wakes up and he's there with her. She tells him that he never should have kept all the stuff about Sean from her, and also just like in general, the secrets of the city. She tells him, while he's like begging her to forgive him, that he is no better than any of the other monsters. Elijah wakes up first. He's still, you know, covered in blood, and he helps Marcel up. Klaus gets a call from Rebekah, and he's like, oh yes, the poison. They're gonna die very soon. Sorry, it's very fast acting. She's like, you mother, they're children. We don't kill kids. Elijah is having to like hold Marcel back because he's ready to just rip Klaus's head off himself. Turns out Klaus was never gonna help. Right? It was never his plan to negotiate or anything like that. So Marcel is even more furious. Marcel drops a little bit of lore though, and we learn that he showed up to the church after Davina had killed Sabine and the other witches, and Sabine woke up because she did this spell that was like a one-time thing where if she died, she would come back to life. So he convinced her to put that spell on Davina, which means that Davina is gonna wake up, but he didn't realize that Tim was also gonna be a target, so Tim is probably gonna die. We cut to Davina waking up. Tim does not wake up. We have to watch her beg him to wake up, crying, sobbing. Josh and Rebekah are there. It was awful. It was awful. So Rebekah carries Davina home. She gives her to Marcel only after they have this moment of like heated eye contact where it's very clear that he is just as upset as she is. Like, he's devastated that this has happened. So he takes Davina up to her room. Klaus tries to talk to Rebekah, but she wants nothing to do with him, right? Elijah already left, so now Pookie over here is just struggling. He's gutted that his siblings seem to hate him all over again. It's his fault. Once again, this all could have been prevented if he just wasn't himself. Elijah encourages Marcel to not give up on trying to earn Davina's trust back because he thinks that it can be done. He sees some drawings that Davina did that are like outside of her sketching visions of other witches doing magic. These are like something else. And Marcel is like, oh yeah, she said they were an omen or something. I don't really know. And Elijah is like, an omen? Cammy confronts Klaus and is like, if you lay one little stupid finger on Davina or Josh, I will kill you myself. Rebekah, turns out, has been monologuing this whole story of this episode to Thierry down in the garden because she wants to take back the city from the boys. So Thierry is her second of this like recruitment scheme, right? She's got Josh, now she's got Thierry. Except turns out she also got Davina because Tim dying turned Davina against the boys completely. So now they're like a little unit of 4. And we know she's also got Haley. So it's just like, these boys are not prepared for Miss Rebekah. She is about to get real messy real quick. Then we get a moment of Haley finding Elijah in the house and being like, hey, are you okay? And he looks up at her and he's like, oh, I'm better now. I would pass away on the spot. She handles his like charm so much better than I would. I don't know how she stays breathing. He's looking at the drawings that Davina made and he's 100% like, these are a premonition. This is dangerous. Something is terribly wrong here, but I can't figure it out. Then we cut to a scene of Sophie digging up Celeste's remains. Yes, he organizes the pictures that Davina has drawn into like a multi-page sketch of Celeste's face, just as Sophie finds the body. And Haley is like, oh God, oh no. And she calls Sophie, but Sophie ignores the freaking call. We get a sexy ass voiceover of Elijah. He gives us some witch lore recaps, basically just saying that witches have been everywhere for all of time, and they've always been either working with or working around vampires. He's thinking that maybe Davina confused powerful for evil because Celeste was a super powerful witch, but she was also like really kind and sweet. And he's like, I don't think she meant evil. Surely not about the woman I loved. That would never be something I would fall for. No. Marcel takes Davina's food and she screams at him and is like, go away! And he just slams into the wall. She is not holding any more punches. The boys and Haley are downstairs and they can just hear him being like flung around like a little doll and like walls banging and clattering sounds. And Klaus is just like, ooh, that seems to be going well. And Elijah is like, well, yes, she's livid because you killed her friend, okay? She loved that little boy and you killed him for no reason other than like drama. What was the point? We go back upstairs to Davina and Marcel and she starts coughing up dirt. Klaus hears this and is like, that doesn't sound normal. So he runs away, leaving Haley and Elijah alone, and she tries to tell him what has happened. But then the whole house starts shaking and like a massive earthquake just like rocks through the whole city. Rebekah ends up with Davina and she's like, girly pop, I told you to disrupt the household, not the whole city. And Davina is like, this isn't me. Something's wrong with my magic. I'm not in control of it. So we should all be worried about whatever the frick Sophie was getting up to in the forest. Marcel and Elijah are super worried about Davina and what's going on with her. So Elijah is like, I'm gonna go talk to Sophie because hopefully she'll tell us. Haley catches him and he tells her, you don't have to eavesdrop. Like, I don't keep anything from you. I'm gonna go talk to Sophie because da-da-da-da-da, and just like spills everything. And Haley is like, yes, but I've been keeping something from you. And she just blabs the whole thing about giving up Celeste's body and why she did it and how she didn't think it would be a big deal, but now she's a little concerned that she may have like catastrophically altered the entire society of witches. Like, it's really bad. And Elijah goes all squinty-eyed with rage. I love it when he gets upset like this, okay, right? Because he just hits you with like... Elijah explains that Celeste didn't want to be buried with the other witches because when they consecrate each other's bodies, the power that they hold goes back into the community. So by giving up her body and allowing Sophie to do this, not only did Haley like violate Celeste's trust in him, she also made him break his promise. And Haley is like, I thought they were just bones, Elijah. And he's like, oh, nice try. If that was true, why didn't you just ask me? So Sophie goes running over to Sabine to say that she's found a ridiculous and highly suspect loophole where apparently there was a massacre several hundred years ago, all the elders were killed, and what they ended up doing to like create new elders was like consecrating those bones and then accepting the power into like younger witches, which like kind of makes sense. It's real weird that nobody knew about that, but Sophie figured it out. Like, it feels like somebody should have known about that. Again, why aren't these witches more educated? So anyway, yes, Sophie is planning on using Celeste's body to like take the power into herself and become an elder so that then she can do the harvest and the reaping and get the girls back. Sabine is like, you just dug up this witch's body that didn't want to be dug up? That's mad disrespectful. Why would you do that? But Sophie is like only worried about getting Monique, her niece, back. She could care less about anything else. So she doesn't mind what she's having to do. Elijah shows up and he's like, I mind. I mind so much. Come with me. At the house, Davina is just having more and more screaming fits that are leading to earthquake after earthquake. Everyone is so calm while the room just like shakes and shatters all around them. Sophie explains that they need to hurry because it's just gonna keep getting worse. Klaus meets up with Kieran to be like, so, our little witch is basically gonna implode, and she's got 4 stages of imploding, right? They're connected to the 4 elements. As you saw, we had a massive earthquake. Now we seem to be having crazy windstorms. Soon it will flood, and then everything will catch on fire. We need to fix this. So they frantically need to complete the harvest ritual. Basically, Davina has too much power. She was never meant to hold all of it. and she's just gonna implode, like I said, and everything will burn with her. Rebekah is trying to gently convince her, but the men are like, we don't have time for niceties. We have to do this. Except for Marcel and Elijah. They want to find another way to save Davina because, say it with me, we don't harm children. Rebekah tries to sedate Davina because they think if she's asleep and calm, her magic can't be like oozing out and causing mass destruction. Davina freaks out and a giant windstorm happens, so Rebekah quickly knocks her out. Marcel is then watching over her, and Elijah is super upset that she's been so heavily sedated. He's really concerned. Unfortunately though, given the tornadoes, Elijah's like, I do think we are gonna have to do this, okay? But she's gonna come back. Like, they're all gonna be resurrected, so it's okay if we kill her because she will come back. Marcel is not having it. He's so against it. Absolutely not. Elijah leaves him alone with Davina to go pay his respects to Celeste's body while Sophie and Sabine like work on her, which means Marcel is alone with Davina. I'm sure nothing will go wrong there. Rebekah meets up with Sophie to make yet another deal, bringing her over onto like the we're against the boys side of things. Marcel freaks out, surprise, surprise. He snaps the neck of the guards watching the room and then kidnaps Davina. Elijah and Sabine are both monitoring Sophie while she does the consecrating ritual, but Mans is struggling. Sabine is like, you don't have to be here for this. Like, it's okay. It's gonna take a really long time. And Elijah is like, I have time. He explains that being with her was so uniquely wonderful that when she died, it was impossible to imagine continuing on without her. Sabine is like, oh, he's kind of cute when he's sad. Rebekah calls to tell them that Marcel has taken Davina, and everybody starts freaking out. Klaus goes to the church. Elijah tells Sabine that he will need her to do a locator spell, and because she's a little like down bad for him, she's like, yes, of course. And Rebekah is like, excellent, boys. I guess I'll just go everywhere else. Haley is freaking out and crying and like packing up things to take to her family in the bayou because they are out there just in the elements. Klaus is mad at first, but then he's like, okay, fine, take those and come with me. Sabine tries to do the locator spell, but Davina is like oozing magic, so it feels like she's everywhere. Elijah gets all cute and he's like, please, just concentrate, try again. And Sabine, once again, is like, okay, since you asked so nicely. Davina wakes up with Marcel in a shipping container. She throws him up against the wall. And very quickly, he's like, would you stop? I'm the only reason why you're alive. He tells her that he's trying to keep her safe, and this time she believes him and she starts crying, and they have a really sweet like daddy-daughter moment. Klaus and Haley show up at the church together with the new donations, and Kieran is like, you donated so much already. Why are you bringing us more? Turns out Klaus has been like donating and like convincing Kieran to watch the werewolves from his clan in the church. We love a complex king. As they're leaving, Haley is kind of like, this is crazy that he's being so nice to these people. Even though he said he didn't want any more family, he seems to have lied. Klaus tells her to just go ahead and apologize to Elijah and not be the way that he is. Sabine finds out that Davina is somewhere near the river, and Elijah's like, thank you so much, that's enough for me, and he takes off. Sophie says that something is wrong, the spell's not working, and it seems like the bones have already been drained. Elijah's like, what do you mean? Okay, new plan. Let's just use our dead mom. She was a witch. That should work. He then pitches the plan to the siblings, and Klaus and Rebekah are both just kind of like, Basically, they need to bury her at the plantation house because Haley and the baby own that house. So even though the vampires can't own property, Haley owns property, and the baby makes Haley part of the family. So the family owns property, and they can bury her on that land, and then she will become a New Orleans witch. And again, Klaus and Rebekah are like, okay, love it. Love that you thought this all through. We can't use magic, so where's the magic gonna go, babes? The loophole here is that they will just turn, like the three of them, will just turn into conduits for Esther's magic that Sophie can then channel on. Sure, okay. Rebekah thinks it's so unbelievably stupid to just hand over their mother's magic when she is like the most powerful witch of all time to their enemies, but she agrees because it starts to rain and like Davina's gonna drown them all. Thierry, who was down in the garden drowning because water flows down, so it's filling up with water, he sends Rebekah off to the docks to find Davina, even though Elijah already knew she was down by the river. So like, oh my God, just go look for her. Davina is now crying and throwing up, and she starts like gagging on water. Marcel is like, I don't know what to do. She's gonna drown in my arms. And Rebekah shows up and is like, okay, we have to do the harvest ritual. Like, if you want to save her, we have to fix this now. They just had Esther's body, I guess, like in a casket. When they're in the room together, Klaus is literally like, I'll go fetch her, and he runs off. And then we cut to them standing over an open grave at the plantation house with Kieran and Esther's body just in a coffin. They consecrate the remains, and I guess it works. They now have connection to Esther's magic. Meanwhile, Sabine and Sophie are at the main graveyard, okay? They're standing over the dead witches, the 3 girls from the harvest ritual. Davina finally cracks, and she tells Marcel that it's okay. She's ready. Even if she's not gonna come back, she doesn't want to be selfish and risk everybody else dying. And she basically is like, I had you, I had Monique, I had Tim. That's enough. I've lived my life. And of course Marcel is like, no, you don't even know what it means to live. You are a child. We can't do this. But it's her choice. So ultimately he's like, if it's what you want, I guess that's fine. I'm not gonna lie, this part got me. It was emotional. It was shockingly emotional. Sophie and the siblings are waiting in the graveyard over the dead girls, and here comes Marcel carrying Davina, and there's just fire following them as they walk. It was pretty sick. I kind of loved it. It's still raining and the fire's just like behind them. It was good. Sophie steps up to her with a hot knife and she says, do you believe in the harvest? Davina says yes before, just she bleeds out in Marcel's arms. It was awful. The rain stops as she dies and her magic flows into the earth. Sophie calls for the girls to be resurrected, but nothing happens. She says it again. Nothing happens. She ends up standing there and just goes, please? And that was bad. I didn't like that line. I didn't like the line delivery there, but because it was almost funny. It was almost comical. Everyone else is just standing around in stunned silence. Marcel is the first one to crack. He's like, oh, I knew it wasn't gonna work. He's ready to start swinging. Sophie drops to the ground, sobbing. This is gonna wreck any hope of Marcel ever forgiving Rebekah or Klaus, because he's just like done. Like nothing behind the eyes but quiet rage, and he just leaves. He goes back to the house and he's throwing things, he's smashing shit, he's having a full meltdown. Klaus shows up. He followed him from the graveyard. I would like to assume that Elijah and Rebekah are just still standing over the dead girls like, I can't believe this happened, because so stunned. I can't express that enough. They were just standing there gagged. So Klaus goes after him and he's like, you've got to calm down. Like, it's gonna be okay. The vampires. And Marcel is like, I don't care about the vampires. She is dead. And Klaus grabs him and he hugs him and he says, I'm sorry. You may think I know nothing of your grief, but you're wrong. He tells him about how when they left the city in 1919, he thought Marcel was dead. And it was years before he could say his name and like not drown in the grief of it. Marcel just lets him hold him, y'all. They're just, oh, it was so good. It was so emotional. I was like, I didn't sign up for this today. Remember how Klaus told Haley to apologize? I'm gonna choose to blame it on the pregnancy hormones, but she walks up to Elijah and opens with, so, are you ready to forgive me yet? Girl, we are back on thin ice, me and you. Elijah is like, absolutely not. You knew exactly what she means to me. And Haley goes, you mean mint? And he turns around and he's like, bestie babes, I have been around for over 1,000 years and I've only been in love twice. You best believe that both times I was loyal. They meant everything to me and those feelings didn't die with them. She has the nerve to put pressure on him for choosing the dead over the living. And she's like, I won't apologize for picking the people I care about too. You're being a hypocrite. And he almost kisses her. My husband was watching this scene with me, and I was like, absolutely. I was like, don't you forgive her right now. No. And he doesn't. But they have a moment where he like catches her on the arm and they look at each other, and you think for a second that he might kiss her, and then he lets her go and she gets away. But like, Klaus confronts Rebekah about the fact that she's actually pretty sneaky and clever, and she did some good work today. They kind of bond over the plan having failed and how it does suck that those girls are dead. And then Rebekah is like, hold, if 4 girls were supposed to rise back from the dead, and that didn't happen, where did that power go? We go back to the cemetery, and we see Sabine messing around with a little puppet doll that seems to be full of blood. And then 3 freaking witch elders come back. It's the main lady that is the one that like initially did the harvest ritual from this timeline. And then another girl that has like dark hair and is in like 1920s clothes, okay? And then a man in a suit with a fun little top hat. It was a sick ass scene, okay? The music choice here was legendary. You guys remember how Sabine and Elijah were being so weird? Yeah. So she is the one that took the power from Celeste, and she actually did it a long time ago. And she is not just, she doesn't just have Celeste power, she is Celeste. Like, Celeste is in her body. Yeah. We open with some fun flashbacks of these witches that we don't know yet. We see them gathering in the cemetery, they're all celebrating, they're dancing, there's a big fire. And then the man with the top hat shows up. His name is Papa Tunde. He comes through with twin boys, and he basically pitches the idea of the harvest ritual to them. He says like, I also use ancestral magic, but I practice ritual sacrifice. We could combine them and your power would be even stronger. Doesn't that sound fun? I was immediately eyeing those twin boys. I was like, what is going on? What is going on? It's not going where you think it is. At least where I'm at, I'm a couple episodes ahead of this. It's not going where you think it is right now, which feels weird. Feels weird. Why did we make them twins? Why did we do that? Then we cut to cutie flashback Elijah in a little 20s suit, and he's having a meeting with some werewolves that Klaus interrupts. Elijah's trying to make a deal with them, and Klaus is still on his bullshit of like, we make deals with no one. The vampires control everything. And then here comes Papa T with his twins. And he's like, hey, so how come you're not making deals with the witches? Do you not understand how powerful we are? Do you not understand the power we hold in the city? We allow you to live here, but we don't have to keep doing that if you don't want to work with us, okay? He then gifts them the head of the freaking mayor, and Klaus is like, okay, he didn't come to play. Marcel is moping around the house. Diego is very worried about him. So are the other vampires. The energy is starting to get real brought down by his depression. Klaus brings Thierry back. All right, from the garden. He pardons him because he's hoping that Marcel will like wake up and be happy to see his friend. It doesn't work. Apparently Klaus was on a visit to Mystic Falls and that's why he's in such a good mood. Please somebody confirm or deny that this is when he hooked up with Caroline. Is that what happened? Klaus then gives a little speech about how the witches will be losing their magic soon, and he thinks it would be really fun to terrorize them a little bit first. So he's like, Diego, go to the cauldron, have a rousting, okay, bother them all. Marcel doesn't want to go though. He's like determined to have an awful time. He's like, I'm taking a personal day, Klaus. Leave me alone. I'm gonna go cry in my bedroom. Rebekah tells Elijah that she's kind of the reason why Thierry is back. She's also positive that somebody stole the magic from Celeste's bones. And so she wants to quickly find that witch and make a deal with them because it's about to get bad. Elijah's disappointed that she's scheming behind Klaus's back because he's like, we're supposed to be supporting him. He's trying his best. But she reminds him that Klaus always does this. He'll do like Golden Boy act, and then the second he doesn't want to do it anymore, he's like, bye, and he daggers them and leaves. Klaus tries to explain to Marcel that he cannot keep moping, all right? It's very sad that Davina died, but it's time to get over it because Klaus is bored. Diego comes in before Marcel can strangle Klaus, and he's like, hey guys, we have a little bit of a problem, and he takes them to the bodies of 2 dead vampires that are like on a ritual circle of salt. They have been marked with like a symbol on their forehead, and immediately Marcel is like, I gotta go. That's awful. Don't mess with this magic. No. Klaus also seems to recognize the symbol, and he's just like, we're actually gonna find them, and I'm gonna kill them myself. Thierry takes Rebekah to another ritual salt circle. This one is empty. She knows it too, and she's like, somebody is using these as a power source. Like, that's what they're for. Is this one a trap? Yes, of course it is. Papa T shows up, and he grabs her, starting to cut her with the knife, and Thierry freaking books it. He just leaves. Elijah's also terrified because he knows what the symbol means. Klaus is just not worried, okay? He refuses to feel fear. Diego is like, that's great, boss. The other vampires are more than a little spooked, okay? Because the witches haven't been killing us for a really long time, and now we just seem to be dropping like flies. So we don't want to do this. Klaus tries to encourage them to not be scared, but they refuse to agree to fight. So he's like, fine, I will go handle it myself. Marcel goes to Cammy because she works at the bar where Sophie works at the restaurant. He's looking for Sophie, but she's missing. Cammy can't find her, so he just camps at the bar with Cammy to drink. She didn't know Davina was dead, so initially she's really mean to him, and then when she realizes like, oh, you're upset, that's why you're day drinking, she's immediately like, I'm so sorry, like, do you want to talk about it? Haley is going through Davina's drawings, and Elijah comes to see her. He apologizes for neglecting her, and then he explains what's going on, and he says that he's a little worried about upsetting Klaus, and she gives him shit about it. She's like, so we don't get to talk anymore because you're worried about being a big brother? I would like to remind you all of the moment in episode 10 where she said, I don't think we should go on a walk together to the party. I don't want to upset Klaus. And you're calling him a hypocrite? Oh, Cammy and Marcel are still hanging out. She's fishing for information about Klaus. He sees right through her, and he's like, bestie babe, you don't need to go after him. That's a terrible idea. He tells her more about Papa T, and we get some more flashbacks. So he had basically been fighting in World War I, and he came back to town, and this is when we saw those flashbacks unfolding. Basically, he just wanted to see Rebekah, but she didn't want anything to do with him. She like sees him at this party at the house, but she's still mad about the fact that he left her daggered for 52 years, so she's like, I think I'm gonna wait at least twice as long to even consider forgiving you. Klaus was thrilled to see him though, and even Elijah is happy. He's like, oh my god, Klaus has been unbearable while you've been gone. They tell him about Papa Tunde, and Elijah is like, we need to negotiate because the goal is that we stay discreet, right? We've been here for a very long time. People are gonna start to get suspicious. We need to make sure that doesn't happen. And Klaus is like, I think we should just kill him. He just needs to die. At the party, Papa Tunde shows up. I feel I should tell you every time he enters a scene, like a snake rattle sound happens. Spooky. Marcel explains to Cammy that at first he was like, why would Klaus invite him if he hates him so much? He just told me he thinks he's a charlatan. But then he says he figured it out. Klaus wanted to watch Papa Tunde. He wanted to get to know him and make him comfortable so that he could pick apart his weaknesses. And Cammy's like, yes, he's a sociopath. She reminds him that they should not emulate those actions. Marcel should not want to be like that because it is a problem. And Marcel is like, I'm just telling you it was kind of cool, okay? We go back to Papa T in the modern day, sacrificing a snake in a really bloody way that I did not enjoy looking at over Rebekah's desiccated body. And he starts like draining the magic from her. Celeste shows up and asks if it's enough power to hurt Klaus. And Papa T is like, oh yes, girl, 100%. Marcel finally takes Klaus's call just to be like, I'm staying at Sophie's until she shows up. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Bye, Dad. And he hangs up on him. Klaus ends up finding Sophie first, and he like grabs her by the throat and drags her to the closest ritual circle. He found one like on the wall. Elijah can't get a hold of Rebekah, and he actually initially is like, I think she's involved with the murders. I think she knows what's going on, and I'm so upset with her. He grabs Thierry and he's like, my sister seems to be fond of you, which is weird because she usually doesn't care about unremarkable men. Initially, Thierry's like, I don't know what you're talking about. No, didn't have anything to do with it. So Elijah's like, yank, and just flings him across the compound. He slams into the wall, and then Elijah like flashes over to him and like slams him up with his hand on his throat. And he's like, tell me what happened, or I'll just pop it off. And Thierry's immediately like, yes, okay, fine. We went down to the docks and she got attacked by Papa Tunde and he freaking touched her with his finger and desiccated her with his finger. Like, just boop, and she desiccated. And Elijah's like, oh, I'm gonna kill somebody. Haley is like, I'm going with you to the docks, okay? You're not going alone. Elijah's initially like, absolutely not. On what planet would I let you go anywhere near this? And she's like, Rebekah's in danger. I'm gonna help her. So Elijah turns around and he's like, you don't leave my side. Do you understand? I get it, baby. I understand. Marcel tries to apologize to Cammy, but she is not really having it. This is not why she's hanging out with him. So he continues the flashback story, and he basically says that Papa T got really mad that Klaus didn't want to work with him, so he just started killing people, like the humans, the witches, the werewolves. Anybody who didn't like Papa T was just ending up dead, and he was just taking their power for himself. Elijah set a meeting with Papa T that he came to, and he was real excited, and then it ends up being Klaus that shows up instead. Klaus explains that he realized that his two sons, the twins, they have the same mark on their forehead, and he was like, you must be drawing power from them. So what happens if their power's gone? And then he puts a box on the table. You remember when he gave Klaus and Elijah the mayor's head? Yeah, he killed the twins. And Papa Tunde freaks out. It was horrific. It was awful. And then he just jumped on Papa Tunde and started like gouging out his eyes and killed him. So then at the bar, present day, okay, Papa Tunde shows up. He tells Marcel that he's always gonna live in the shadow of his father, but he needs to climb out so that he can die like a man. Marcel vamps to him and breaks his neck, but Papa Tunde just sort of like puts his head back straight. I loved him. Yes. Cammy breaks a bottle over his head to get Marcel out of harm's way, and he throws her into the bar. And then Marcel wakes up again and they start scrapping, and it's just stuff flying everywhere. Back out on the street, okay, Sophie and Klaus are talking about the ritual killings, and then Cammy frantically calls him. I guess she's fine. Doesn't seem like she broke anything. And she's asking him to come help save Marcel. Elijah and Haley find Rebekah on that ritual circle. They realize that she's basically being used as like an endless power source because she can't die. And there is, of course, a boundary spell up around her, so they have to figure out how to break that before they can get in. Papa T is preparing to kill Marcel, but Klaus shows up and they start fighting. He is scary strong, and even Klaus is scared. Elijah calls Sophie, and she explains that all they need to do is add another element to the spell, like just put something else where the barrier spell is and it will break down. Now look, that doesn't make any damn sense, okay? That doesn't make any damn sense. Are barrier spells a shit ton different from invitation spells? Because you're telling me that there's not a loophole that the vampires can use to get into houses? What on earth? They get me going with the witch lore, and then they do something like this, and I'm like, we can't think about that too hard. Don't think about it. So Elijah realizes that if they use Haley's blood, and like, you know, i.e. the baby's blood, because she's a quarter witch, then the spell should go away, and it does work. So he quickly yanks Rebekah out, just as Papa T is starting the spell on Klaus. So it doesn't work, and Klaus gets away. Papa T quickly runs off. Cammy then runs back in, and Klaus is like, get out of here, go find me a human, Marcel needs blood. And Cammy's like, hello. So she goes over to him because she says that Klaus is not in control of her anymore, and she kneels down by Marcel and like helps him sit up, and then like offers him her neck, and he drinks from her, and it's really sweet, and he undesiccates and he's fine. Rebekah attacks Thierry for leaving her behind, and she's like, are men just simply incapable of committing to alliances? Why are you guys so useless? Elijah shows up, snaps his neck, and then straight up like wags a finger at her and is like, little sister, please stop being an idiot. and just trust Klaus, okay? He's happy and we should be happy with him. But she's like, what about my happiness? He has been systematically taking it from me our whole lives. And then she points out that he is so hypocritical because his feelings for Haley are gonna be the downfall of the whole family, and like that's what's gonna be what ruins it. One thing about my boy is that when he is proven wrong, he shuts up, okay? So he just swallows his own tongue and Rebekah just walks away. She goes to Marcel, and we find out that Marcel is the one that invited Papa Tunde to town back in 1919. In the flashbacks, Rebekah is like, you did what? He says he did it for her because he was hoping that Papa T would be strong enough to defeat Klaus, and then Rebekah would have a chance at happiness, and maybe he could get her to forgive him if they had some time alone. He was gonna kill his dad figure in order to get Rebekah back. Rebekah's just as floored as I am right now, okay? She's like, really? You did it for me? And Marcel's just like, yes. I don't think you understand how much I like you. You know, I don't think she did either until this moment right here. And so she tells him, just in the Michelson compound, right? They're just at a party. Elijah and Klaus are somewhere in the building. She just tells Marcel, if you really want to get rid of my brother, we should bring my dad back, because Klaus would run and he'd never come back. She says they just need a witch to help them, and she turns and looks, and it's that same witch that Sabine brought back. So Haley realizes at this same time that Davina has been drawing faces of all the witches that came back, not just Celeste. She wanders out onto the balcony to see like a gathering of the vampires down below. Elijah sees her, and we know they're probably looking for each other, but he decides to like heed Rebekah's warnings and like leave her alone. Klaus makes another speech about how they need to prove themselves to him, not the other way around. And he's like, I need warriors. Right now you're all giving coward, so we need to fix that. He tells them they either agree to fight or they leave right now. And Thierry's like, peace? Is it that simple? I would rather head out of the quarter entirely than work under you. He tries to get Diego to go with him, but Diego's like, I'm not leaving Marcel. You are a traitor. And like a quarter of the people head out, but the rest of them stay. Klaus and Marcel meet with Sophie. She confirms what everybody's been thinking, which is that someone stole the power, and instead of bringing back the girls, they brought back 4 other witches, Papa Tunde included. Papa T is a huge problem for everybody because since he uses like ritual sacrifice magic, every time he does that, he just gets stronger. This is when Klaus realizes, oh shit, we left the garden unprotected, and sure enough, Papa T went down there and sacrificed all of those trapped vampires. So now he's just swimming in magic. Papa T, though, put all of that power into this cool bone knife that he has. He tells Celeste that it will do things worse than death, even to an original. She asks him if he's ready for the final offering. He says, in the name of the witches of the French Quarter, it would be my honor. And then, yeah, she just, y'all, I am loving where the story is going now. I love the witches, you know I do. So give me that. Just let me focus on them, okay? That's what I really want out of this experience. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's video. If you did, don't forget to comment down below. I love talking to y'all each week. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you so soon. Have a good one. Bye.